Okay, so I wanted to start this one out with kind of an interesting topic that I've covered a little bit in the past. This divide, this kind of fracture between two different sides of the audio industry and two different kinds of customers. There's kind of a divide between pro audio people and pro audio gear and content creation people and content creation gear. There is an entire industry completely dominated by massive companies that have nothing to do with the other massive companies, even though for all intensive purposes, they sell the same thing with just a little bit of a different industrial design. And on that topic, for the demographic that this microphone serves, I think there's one large weakness. That's a big deal to one side of the audio industry and not a very big deal to the other side. We'll get to that though. Let me get back to the point I'm trying to make. When you look to the content creation and streaming world, you have companies like Elgato, GoXLR. Elgato is a part of a larger company called Corsair that makes an entire line of computer parts and peripherals. Blackmagic made a streaming interface now. And for the most part, they target an entirely separate audience than something like Shure or Lewitt or Electro Voice, Austrian Audio. Just an entirely different market, but kind of the same product. I mean, guys, on the FAQ sheet I was given pre-launch of this microphone, one of the commonly asked question was, why is there no RGB? Dude, what? Guys, the Elgato DX does not have to be a voiceover microphone, even though it's tailored for voiceover microphone. It doesn't have to be used in content creation or streaming. And the SM57 does not have to be used as a guitar mic or a snare mic on your next record. It is also a perfectly capable voiceover microphone. Hey guys, really quick, I forgot to mention that Elgato did send me this microphone for review. Just the standard YouTube disclosure. There you go. So in this review, I'm going to cover some stuff that is fairly typical for me to cover, certain specifications that I think this microphone probably needs to meet in order to meet its customer needs. Basically, what I think people will need the most out of this microphone to make it perform optimally in a voiceover and streaming setup. But then I'm going to go into stuff that is just a little bit harder to measure than that. Things that wouldn't matter if this was just a pro audio mic, but that do matter if it's a content creation mic. And we will also compare this microphone to some of the other mics that I think are quite heavy hitters in the industry regardless of price, and then some other ones that are competing in terms of budget as well. Okay, so there is actually one really important detail about the DX that I forgot to mention, and that is that whatever you do with it isn't gonna matter unless you publish your work with our sponsor, DistroKid. I'm really trying to nail these transitions, guys. I hope it works. It is true, though, that DistroKid is how you publish your work online to any number of streaming platforms, including Spotify, Apple Music, Pandora, YouTube, TikTok, you name it. And you get all of this for only 20 bucks a year. And for that $20 a year, you get to keep all of your revenue. It's such a good deal that I'm sure many of you are already familiar with DistroKid and already have used it in the past because it is the de facto standard for uploading music as an independent artist, and for good reason. Now, one thing I think is often left out of the equation when people think of DistroKid is that there are so many free tools that come along with this $20 a year that help you manage your entire independent artist business. Things like Upstream. This is a really cool service that DistroKid has launched that essentially lets you package all of your statistics together and send them to major labels like Republic Records. They have like Taylor Swift. It's a crazy huge label. And also things like DistroKid Splits. So Splits lets you split the revenue among any number of people that happen to work on the project. Producers, band members, managers, whoever. And these are just two of a ton of different tools at your disposal in order to make the best possible impact with your music. You are actually buying into much more than just a publication service. Again, for $20 a year, and you can get an even further discount with code AudioHaze. They're also just really awesome, really cool people, so check out DistroKid in the link down below. I promise you, you're probably already going to use it, so you might as well get the extra discount as well. All right, back to it. So first and foremost, a huge topic of conversation whenever it comes to voice over dynamic microphones is gain necessities. I mean, I have really good news here. This microphone is incredibly easy to power compared to the competitors. This thing needs only 52 decibels of gain in order to reach optimum levels. This microphone essentially outperforms almost everything else. The SM57 needs 56 dBs of gain, the RE20 needs 56.5 dBs of gain, the SM58 needs 60 dBs of gain. This thing is coming in lower than all of them. So with virtually every interface, as long as it has more than 50 dBs of gain, which is most of them, you're going to be able to power this, which is great. Funny though, most interfaces marketed towards the streamer and content creation use gain signal as a selling point. So whenever you go to like the Wave XLR or the Go XLR, these things have like 70 decibels of gain, just a ridiculous amount of gain on hand. Odds are for the people that are going to buy this, this is not a problem. Any dynamic microphone is going to perform relatively well whenever it comes to background room rejection, and this is no different. This, I would say, performs just as well as your SM57s, your SM7Bs, your RE20s. You're good there. Look, I'm going to be honest with you guys. There's not a lot about this microphone, technically speaking, that I have an issue with. We'll get to the sound and the tuning of this microphone here in a second, but when it comes to measurable spec performance, this microphone does very well. It has an integrated pop filter that works very well. It's not sibilant at all. Here's a plosive test. The way it dissipates it causes virtually no clipping. Everything here is very well controlled. Now let's talk about the tuning of this microphone, because it's actually very different sounding, in my opinion, than a lot of the other microphones in this class, namely in its control of the upper mid-range and high-end information. Let's talk about tone after the blind test. So we're going to do a blind test between the SM57, the Shure MV7, the Shure SM7B, and the Electro Voice RE20. And I found some dad jokes that we're going to use as an example. Which bear is the most condescending? A panda. 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 How do celebrities stay cool? They have many fans. How do celebrities stay cool? They have many fans. How do celebrities stay cool? They have many fans. How do celebrities stay cool? They have many fans. How do celebrities stay cool? They have many fans. Okay, so we've got some interesting results here. The Shure MV7, the Shure SM7B are basically doing their own thing, both of which are so dark and mid-range forward that it's hard not to recognize them in a crowd. You either like that tuning or you don't like that tuning. Now, the SM57 has a more pronounced upper range. It's one of the few dynamic microphones I use on a regular basis that's actually fairly bright and it's tuned to be that way. And this microphone is now one of the other bright dynamic microphones that I've tested on this channel. You know, in a lot of ways, it has a lot more presence, which is always a little scary with dynamic microphones when they have that tuned upper mid-range, but they've done it extremely well here. This is not a sibilant microphone at all, and I think they've dialed in this tone so that the average streamer or content creator probably doesn't have to do a lot of editing and post or EQing how they like the microphone to sound, although it does come with its own software that's a relatively simple EQ to figure out. But this sounds like a microphone that's already been adjusted to work in a voiceover context with the proper amount of highs and lows for the average voice, including a brighter tonality than you would find on something like an SM7B. All in all, I actually think this is a really effective tuning, especially if you don't want to do any adjustments in post.
I do want to interrupt again here for a second because I've, through the process of mixing this video, I have a few more opinions that aren't quite so positive whenever it comes to this microphone. Two things. One being that it's not very good at physically rejecting a lot of reverberation. It's a little bit of a resonant body, which isn't that big of a deal, but if you're working in a gaming setting and you're mashing your keyboards a little bit, it's something to keep in mind. If you have a good arm that's good at rejecting a lot of physical noises and kind of absorbing most of that blow, like the Elgato boom arm, it's not going to be that big of a deal. And the other thing is, I will actually say though that the low end of this microphone is maybe a little bit anemic. Perhaps it's a little bit thin, so you might need to boost that in post with an EQ. Okay, that's it.
Now, it does have a pretty decent proximity effect, although it's not overbearing. I think a lot of people are going to use this to their advantage for dramatic effect on stream or something like that. Good to go there as well. Here's a quick listen to how I would adjust and process this signal on my own voice, and we will engage that now. This next paragraph will all be in a process chain. So what do we have here? Well, on paper, and I emphasize on paper, we have a mic with great gain ratings, good room rejection, a nice tasteful tuning that shouldn't require a lot of work in post, not to mention fairly easy software to help support any tunings that you want to adjust later, and an integrated pop filter that makes it great for use right out of the box. All great things, but let's talk about what I teased in the beginning of this video. If this was a workhorse studio microphone, this would not be an issue. But the fact is, this microphone will be on camera, and it will be on camera often. For a lot of people, almost exclusively used on camera. It's not only a set piece, it's probably your most prominent set piece in your video. And guys, it's ugly. This is an ugly microphone. Okay, I'll get a little bit more specific on that in a second, but yeah, it's a rectangle with a stick stapled onto it. If I had to take my guess here, this microphone is going to suffer from what I call Yeti syndrome, wherein some of the average users just don't know where to put their voice relative to the position of the microphone. Because check this out. If I just change the orientation, and the logo is not really directional, so it's not showing you if this is the front of the microphone or the side of the microphone. A quick 90-degree turn and this looks like a condenser. I thought this was a condenser when I first saw it. While I get what they're after with this more flexible yoke mount, sure, you can feasibly turn a larger degree of rotation with this one yoke mount on the side. Is it not just weird looking? Look, okay, so I've made this big deal about the divide between the content creation world and the pro audio world in the audio space. And that divide seeps into the design language of these microphones. Let me throw you some microphones that have landed more into this content creation world in recent years. The Universal Audio SD1, the Beacon microphone, the Earthworks Ethos, the Shure MV7. What do all these microphones have in common? Quite frankly, they're all derivatives of the Shure SM7B, a microphone that I think we can all generally agree is relatively camera friendly. It is a good looking mic. Am I saying that this Elgato needs to mimic those designs? No, I think it would actually be great to have a different looking design on the market. They do need to give some sort of thought to the directionality of this microphone. For all intensive purposes, a rectangle with ambiguously placed grill marks all along the side of the microphone. It implies that it's a side address. Maybe I'm wrong here, and maybe I'm making a bigger deal out of this than it needs to be. But when your primary audience is certainly not gonna notice the difference in audio so much as the difference in design, the difference really does come down to the aesthetic and the kinesthetic quality, I think, of the product. Does the design of your product appeal to the average consumer on a holistic level, visually? That, I think, is a big question for this microphone and for this demographic of buyers. And for me personally, this doesn't do it. Okay, so there you have it. What do you think? Am I pushing too hard in this direction that isn't as big of an issue as it necessarily needs to be? Or do you agree? What do you think? Tell me the merits of a visual design for a product that is primarily meant for audio purposes. Okay, with that said, you can follow me on Instagram at RealAudioHaze. If you'd like to work on a project with me, you can email me at realaudiohaze@gmail.com. I'll see you in the next video.